Hola. Okay, I got the back feet. I got this. Well, I'm starting this early, so there might be some dead air while it warms up. I'm maybe type a few things in the meantime while I'm waiting for folks to drop in. I'm about 3 minutes early, I think, still. Probably logged in almost 5 minutes early. Well, a lot of people have been asking me if I'm in Peru, which I guess is reasonable because I do like to go there and have been there a few times, even been there during demonstrations in the past. No, I'm not. I'm in Guatemala. But due to all the interest about Peru, I am going to open up tonight's live stream to questions regarding Peru. So if anybody's got thoughts on the subject, fire away in the chat. I'll be happy to answer them. I don't necessarily type and talk at the same time, but we'll see what I can pull off. Yeah, I said Peru's been in the news. It's like crazy stuff. Oh, good. I don't feel quite as crazy. Someone is here. This is cool. Well, you got the floor. You can ask any crazy questions you want, or same ones too. I might be the crazy one. I don't complain. I don't claim to be normal. Who would want to go down a river with a normal guide that's boring? Oh, okay. Oh, in Peru, they primarily, if you know Spanish, you'll get by really well. If you're going down the tourist trail through southern Peru, the way I look at it, like you start off in Lima and you work your way down the coast on the Pacific Ocean, I think Paracas would be one of the hot spots you'd want to see for sure. And Ica and Hawaii China, the oasis is really cool. It's like you got to see it to believe it. Uh, you kind of go almost down to Chile and Bolivia and start looping back up, going back up north through the Andes to get to Machu Picchu. There are a lot of peoples along that route that can speak English. I wouldn't expect everyone to. Once you get up into the Andes, you will encounter more than a few people that may not speak much Spanish but speak Quechua. I've only learned a few words of Quechua and I have forgotten most of them. It is a beautiful language and it sounds a lot like Cherokee or Iroquois. So they're very nice people. But just a little bit of Spanish will get you a long ways. And if all else fails, you can use Google Translate. I often have better luck reading and writing in Spanish. So a lot of times, if I'm dealing with a pharmacy or something, or doctor, God forbid, I will often write notes. And once they realize I'm literate, they'll write back to me if I'm having trouble understanding them, if I feel bad. And it can be helpful also when you're getting bus tickets. But most of the time, if you can just say the name of the place you want the bus ticket to, they will work with you. It helps if you understand numbers and time, just simple things. It's not that hard. If you can make it through freshman year of Spanish in high school, that's probably a decent starting point. The more Spanish you know, the more fun it'll be, of course. Can't be too hard if a hillbilly can do it. Like my crazy accent probably does bleed over into Spanish as well. Hey, Mitch, it's good to hear you. Good to see you. Good to read your typing, I guess. I guess we're going to kind of start off talking about Peru if people are inclined or got questions about it. But I'm also would like kind of like open the floor up to, hey, Alan, any questions about electronics, power converters, power adapters, what you need to use different kinds of voltage? For instance, in Peru, the voltage is 220 in your outlets in the wall, like high voltage, compared to household voltage in the United States. Yeah. Yeah, you can learn Spanish almost anywhere. I find all you got to do is find the best local Latino restaurant, and you can start working on it because they'll be happy to talk to you in their language. I get a lot of practice at Mexico Loco in Copper Hill, Tennessee during my rafting season, especially on Friday nights when all the local Latino kids show up. When I say kids, I mean anybody that's younger than me. So, that's just about all the people working for a living. But they show up and you'll see them. There's a terminal there and they can wire money back home to mom in El Salvador or Guatemala. And you'll see them pulling off $500-$700 bills and mailing them, wiring them back home to help take care of their siblings and their family. And then they have a really good time and drink lots of beer and listen to the same Mexican music videos you see here in Guatemala. It's really pretty cool. And they're very friendly, and they're kind of like expats are down here, getting in a little gathering where they can hear Spanish and talk to each other rather than dealing with English like they've been doing all work week, at least outside of their crew. It's similar but different than what I do, I guess, in my off season. So I hang out with them. I get a lot of practice and help. But also, kind of like I was saying, the higher volt in Peru, the voltage in your regular outlets, they're generally speaking European style outlets most of the time, as I recall. Sometimes you might see some American styled ones. You can plug in American or European. The European's two prong. The American be type A. Sometimes they're grounded. Most times it's a bad idea to plug into a grounded outlet because more than a few times that ground is hot. So I often use an adapter to turn my type B, the three prong, into a type 2 so it doesn't make the aluminum case on my laptop shock me. No, this sounds crazy for sure, but it's true. That said, if all you have is electronics, you do not need a converter. A converter is basically a step down transformer to drop the voltage from 220 down to 110 or 125. Most power new transformers in the United States are 125 volt. I know these things because I am an electrician. That's what I did in a past life. It's so it seems. So that's probably boring. That was this week's video, so you can go back and look at that if you'd like. Also, kind of would like to kind of maybe chat, throw questions about Posadas, the 9 days before Christmas. Is basically like processions. It's kind of like caroling in the United States, but it's based on the idea of Joseph and Mary looking for a place to stay in Bethlehem. Of course, that's pronounced different here, but anyway, so they go around doing that. It's pretty cool. It's a very Catholic thing. It was invented in, I believe, 1528 by a friar trying to give the forced converts to Christianity in Mexico something to do and some festivities because they had their own winter solstice festivities in the past at the same time. And they were worshiping the god of war and his mother. And let's just say that some people probably didn't look forward to those festivities because they killed a lot of slaves and there was human sacrifice and bleeding and such things involved in that in what's now Mexico City. And while they're at that, the mother of the gods, they co-opt her, and they co-opted that deity into what's now the Virgin of Guadalupe, and they built a church at the base of the hill where the Aztecs had the temple to the mother of the gods. There's a long story about that, and it's pretty good. If you look at the description for tonight's video, I have tagged a video that's 1 hour long that really gets into the mythology of the Aztec gods, and it will explain it quite well. And it also alludes to the co-opting of the Aztec deity into the Christian pantheon. It's quite interesting. I do recall reading about this story as a kid way back in grade school, probably about third grade or so, when I was at a parochial school, Catholic school with nuns and such. And they told me the story, and well, it's not quite like they didn't maybe say the whole truth. They just told me the part they wanted good little Catholic kids to know. I know that's way out there. Now I'm going to read what you guys are writing, Mitch. If you're going to Machu Picchu during the, okay, let me take a little sip of this Coca-Cola. A little caffeine to keep me going. If you're going to Machu Picchu in the peak season, which would be winter time in Peru, which would be summertime in North America, of course, that's when most people have time to go on vacations and bring the kids. So if you're going there, especially around their winter solstice, our summer solstice, if you're in North America, yeah, you definitely need to pre-book your tickets. You can do it online through the Ministry of Tourism in Peru. If you go during the winter time, North American winter time, like I went during December, it's real easy to get your tickets. On the other hand, I was also there during the pandemic, which probably made it even easier to get my tickets, but I didn't have a problem. I went directly to the Ministry of Tourism office in Cusco and went in there. They have at least one person that speaks English, but if you can't speak Spanish, you're going to probably be in a line a long time. I was able to converse enough in Spanish to negotiate my ticket. If I'm not mistaken, it costs less than $40 doing it in person. I don't know if there's a extra fee to do it online. But if you're afraid to go talk to them and you don't think you can do Spanish, and like I told you, you got the pro tip. There is at least one person in the Ministry of Tourism office that can speak English and is there to deal with the gringos. You can go to a tourist agency. They're all swarmed around lots of storefronts right around the Ministry of Tourism, and they're trying to pull you into their little tourist agencies, and they'll arrange it all for you. But it'll cost you more than $100 for that less than $40 ticket I got. Of course, they might also sell you a package that includes transportation. You can do the train, as I recall, that's way, way over my standard of living. You can ride the train. It's like luxury thing, like some crazy Agatha Christie movie or book or something. It's like riding in a luxury train in Europe. It's way over the top. And it was, if I'm not mistaken, it was like about $50, maybe $55. They want American money, but if all you got is soles like me, they will definitely do the conversion. They'll pull up the conversion while it is that day and give you a fair conversion, and you can buy it with soles. I took, if I'm not mistaken, Peru Rail, but there's also Inca Rail. There are other ways to get there. You can dirt bag it and do colectivos all the way up to hydroelectric. And from hydroelectric, you can literally hoof it right down the railroad. And I don't recall exactly how many kilometers it is from hydroelectric to Machu Picchu or Aguas Calientes. Sometimes I'll call it Pueblo Machu Picchu. But in my world, it's not that far. I don't think it's more than 5, and I'm almost certain it's less than 10 kilometers walk. If you really want to do it cheap, that's the cheapest way to do it. You can also do the trek. The trek isn't cheap, but hey, the porters work really hard to carry all your stuff and food and things, and people do that. It does cross over 14,000 feet in elevation. So if you're older or you have breathing issues, physical problems, or just high altitude, you probably won't like that. There's a shorter trek that's also offered that's at a lower altitude, and it doesn't get 14,000 feet in its shorter trip. From what I understand, you see some awesome ruins along both of them that are well off the beaten path. I didn't have time to do that on my trip, or didn't care to, and I was carrying too much heavy gear to do that route. I was carrying a really nice full frame camera to get some good pictures of Machu Picchu, so I didn't do that. Does that answer your question there, Mitch, or looking for something else? So Peru's really cool. Right now, it's probably not the right time for most normal people to go there. I have been there during protests and political upheavals, and the biggest inconvenience, generally speaking, is the strikes shut down transportation, which can be aggravating. If you're somebody that only has 1 week or 2 week vacation and you get there during political upheaval when the indigenous people are striking and protesting, yeah, you might get back to work late. You might have to try to change your airline ticket. It could be a real pain. I'm not sure I don't think I bought my flight back to from Lima to Quito, Ecuador until I was back in Lima after I went the whole way. So I had a lot of flexibility. All right. Well, I'm glad to hear that, Mitch. So what do you people want to hear about? I kind of like do this kind of like Q&A maybe, and throw this out to the peanut gallery, see what you're thinking. I know I threw a video up earlier in the week about power adapters. Not sure what this week's videos are. If I'm doing them on a whim, I had some ideas and I kind of dropped them. But I am planning on trying to explore around the lake, maybe a little bit more about the Christmas festivities. But there's lots of fireworks going off. They're selling so many fireworks down the road here that it reminds me of Tennessee. Although some of the fireworks look a little suspect. The prices are good though. And you get firecrackers in mass quantities. It's a good thing they can't get that many down on the Ocoee, or almost all the guide shacks would have burned down by now. There have been some problems, I'm sure. So, like I say, the Christian traditions here, the 9 days before Christmas, they were co-opted from local traditions. Hey, that's how most of the great ideas of every religion or most festivals are borrowed from the people that have been conquered. Not unlike in Europe, or the Romans moving Jesus' birthday to their festival for winter solstice. So I guess it's the same everywhere. It's a pretty good party, though, I suppose. It's pretty jovial. In my understanding, here, much like the rest of Latin America, the really big deal of Christmas is going to be Christmas Eve. Kind of like it was in my family to some degree. Midnight Mass will be a huge deal. That's kind of like, the climax of the season. Of course, then you still got the 12 days of Christmas that follow that. Maybe we'll deal with that in a future video. But so anybody curious, like in Peru, in the Andes in particular, if the government does something that really offends the people, especially the Latin America, let's see. Oh, it's quite nice here. It's almost too warm for my hillbilly blood, to be honest, but it's not cold. I mean, it's right here down at Lake Atitlan, kind of the highlands of Guatemala, but these mountains are small. They're kind of like the Blue Ridge. Like where I'm at right now would be like being in the Smoky Mountain National Park. I'm probably somewhere in the vicinity 5,000 feet. In the mountains in the Smokies go up to about 6,500 or so. So it's kind of like that in the middle of the summer. It can get warm. It's a bit warmer here than in Baños de Agua Santa, Ecuador, where I spend a lot of my time during my endless summers or endless springs. In Ecuador, I tend to stay between 6,000 and 8,000 feet in elevation, but I'm right on the equator there. It's really nice. It feels like April in Cleveland, Tennessee, or Green River Cove, North Carolina, Saluda. It's pretty similar. They're just, Cleveland, the Ocoee is like the opposite side of the Blue Ridge Mountains as opposed to where I spend time in North Carolina. So I guess I spend more time in Tennessee than North Carolina nowadays. But the protest and the people, when the indigenous people to whom the ousted Presidente that's in prison now, looks like he's going to serve a year and a half for his sins in Peru. His family did get granted asylum and being given access to the airport because, let's see, ousted Presidente was trying to get to the Mexican embassy to get asylum and try to flee the country to Mexico. And well, his own bodyguards arrested him and they took him to jail. And it looks like he's going to serve a year and a half. His wife and family made it to the Mexican embassy, although there is some talk they wanted to prosecute her, but they're going to be granted access to the airport and flown to Mexico if they haven't already flown. I'm not absolutely certain. But the president comes from the indigenous people. He had a very humble beginning, and he spent much of his life working as a school teacher. The indigenous people, who are large numbers, but up in the mostly rural northern Peru and the Andes, like Machu Picchu, Sacred Valley, they don't have much political clout nor wealth. And about the only recourse they have when things go sideways, hey, Wade, about the only recourse they have when things go sideways and go against them, the elites are making them feel bad. Like, hey, United States can probably relate to this. A lot of people voted for some rich guy named Trump instead of someone from their own caste, like at least Peruvians voted for someone like them. But in frustration, they vote for somebody and things didn't go their way and they got pissed off. Everybody can relate to that. So what they do, what the typical result is, and this probably goes back all the way to it probably goes back beyond the independence and the wars that San Martin and Simon Bolivar and others fought to get the Spaniards out of their country. And then when those aristocrats weren't making the people, la gente, the indigenous people happy, they did similar things. But what their general tactic is, the indigenous people declare a strike, and most of the working class go right along with them because they're all in cahoots and or related to some degree, or they can relate to each other. The working class generally understands that the indigenous leaders and people are on their side and they're trying to fight for workers' rights and a fair, bigger piece of the pie. So what they do is they shut down all interstate commerce and they let the elites feel some pain. The corporations aren't making money because they shut everything down. And then in Ecuador, they will even shut down the pipelines by whatever means necessary. Okay, I stole that from Malcolm, but still the same deal. For real, they will do that. It may cause a little bit of environmental damage, but they're the ones who are going to suffer the environmental damage because they live off the land. But they'll shut all interstate commerce down. In Ecuador, they will warn you not to travel during this. And if you decide that you want to travel in spite of the strike, well, when you come to the roadblock, if you're in a bus or whatever, they're going to take as spoils of war, whatever goodies happen to be in the baggage. Well, it's of use to them anyway. To help, it's kind of like when you're a striking auto worker, you get some small penance from the union to make sure you can eat. Well, they take stuff out of the bus to make sure they can eat. Hey, they're just trying to live. They gave you fair warning not to do it. Pro tip: don't travel during the strike in the Andes. Just hunker down. Make some new friends. Enjoy the food. If you are in an area with a lot of indigenous people, you're in luck. They're almost sure to have food because they'll make sure they have food for their own. So you'll be able to go to local mercado and shops and you'll probably be okay. Wade's trying to pull me off. We might go back to the previous subject since he got here late. He is throwing in some good titillation into the story. Pardon my pun I did on purpose. So at any rate, due to the fact they don't have a lot of clout, they can't lobby and buy politicians. Their last resort to come to a table and get some middle ground is they cause strikes and they shut down all interstate commerce so they can get their way, or meet somewhere in the middle. So that's what's going on now. This is really the normal political process in the Andes. I've been through this in Ecuador and Peru. It's pretty normal. I would not consider my life in danger if I was there right now. I might not be able to travel freely, but hey, just enjoy where you're at. Enjoy the great local food. Even better if you're in northern Peru or the Andes, where you're more likely to have food. The people in the cities, well, they might have some issues. That's where the elitists live. All right, so what Wade is talking about is back to the mother of the gods. And what she found is feather. Well, the story goes better than that, but I'm going to dumb it down to hillbilly standards. And she's playing with this feather somehow. I'm not going to go into as much detail as my wonderful guide did at Templo Mayor in Mexico. She was really good, but I'm not sure I can say it as carefully as she did and not get in trouble with YouTube. So somehow she got impregnated while she was playing with this feather. And then she gave birth to the god of war. And by the way, I can't pronounce his name, and I'm not going to butcher it right now, unless it's popular demand. But then I'll laugh at me. But the other 400 children of her, the stars in the sky, the southern sky, I should say, they were really upset that she had been, like fidelity with her father, and they were not happy. So the moon goddess, or who's now the moon, decided that something had to be done about this. So she was going to kill her mother for her sins of infidelity. She thought she was making it with some other guy or something, another god. And well, one of the gods came and warned the infant war god what was coming. And he told his mother telepathically not to worry. He would protect her. And he was born completely grown and alive. They say the old one in Mexico. But he come out and he bowed his siblings and killed a lot of them. And in particular, the moon goddess. And if you've seen the pictures I shot in the museums in the Templo Mayor of the round disc with the dismembered goddess, well, that's the moon. So, okay, that was a really bad story. I'd probably be better telling stories about hillbillies in the Cherokee that I know better, but that's the short gist of it. If you're curious, if you go to the description of this video, there's a lot more details and links so you can get the story firsthand by somebody that really knows the local culture and can tell a much more entertaining story with some really great graphics too. I watched it twice. It can't be bad, and it's 1 hour long. All right, what do you want now, Wade? We wandered on a couple of subjects. So what's on y'all's minds? I hear crickets. I don't think I have this thing on slow. So we're about 30 minutes in today. I've got at least one local that can understand my accent out there. The rest of you might be struggling a little. Wow, I'm almost tongue-tied for a moment. Oh, yeah. Well, I'm going to take this brief break to say Merry Christmas from Macaulay Adventure Center. Take advantage of our year-end deal, 10% off gift certificate sale. They make great stocking stuffers. Enter code HOL10. HOL10 is the code to enter at checkout. You can purchase the gift certificates in increments of $50 and have a lot of fun. We do spend the most time surfing it up and playing. Yeah, I'm one of the guys, so I should know. The only thing I ever get in trouble for is making the trip too long, but well, they expect that. That's how we're different from the other companies. So like I said, the discount code is HOL10. So we did get up. Oh, another thing is the religious differences between Mesoamerica and South America are kind of notable as well. In South America, the indigenous people worship Pachamama. But in both South America and Mesoamerica, if you find a church dedicated to John the Baptist, odds are they are practicing their old religion cloaked in Catholicism. It's not a bad thing, but don't be surprised if you go inside and see shaman and people sacrificing chickens or guinea pigs, depending on which latitude you're at. Ooh, I don't know, Alan. You might talk me into that. I do need to go see some more things. I am going to try to go see some more things around Lake Atalan. I'm probably going to go to San Marco next. And there's several other places around here. Alan's the guru. He's spent like a couple decades here. He knows where all the great places are nearby. Oh, Merry Christmas. Excuse my crazy talk about the pagan ways or the older religions. It's not necessarily a bad thing. The people I have met up in the Andes that are still practicing old ways are very nice. And they have a lot of hospitalities for strangers. It remind me of the folks I grew up with around the mountains. They're pretty friendly and they will feed you if you're hungry. Pretty nice. If you're nice to them, they'll treat you with respect. Near San Cristobal, there was another John the Baptist church, and it was different. It was a church, but there was no priest. They don't have mass. They don't have pews. Inside, they have all these crazy statues of saints and candles burning everywhere. And they do ritual sacrifices of animals and stuff, generally to cure somebody of a mental or physical disease. Really interesting place. You are not allowed to take pictures inside, and they are serious. They have killed people for doing so in the past. I haven't seen anything quite that outrageous in the Andes, but a lot of things there are done outside of particular sites that have significance. And as you're wandering around Ecuador, if you see get up on the peak of a mountain or going through a pass, and you see a little altar to a virgin or something, odds are the native people were already worshiping there and they just co-opted and tried to make it Christian. Not say there's anything wrong with it. Oh, hey, David. Good to see you here. Kind of rambling on about things. You guys aren't asking enough questions. Alan's working on it, though. So I guess I don't have a huge amount of stuff on top of my mind today. Oh, cool. Yeah. Thank you, Alan. You did bring that up earlier today. I would like to go check that out. And I was talking to Bruce about some school to go see as well that's nearby that might be interesting as well. Oh, when am I going to Ecuador? Odds are I'm going to go to Ecuador by mid-January. I don't exactly have it hammered all the way out. I got to go buy my tickets. I got to see what day the holiday pricing drops off. The date I really want to go, they want $400 for a ticket, which probably don't sound like a lot of money to many people, but to a dirty river guy like me, $400 is pretty steep. But I gotta weigh that with what it would cost me if I delay my travel for one more week. How much will that set me back versus just paying a ticket to get to Ecuador, where I know what I can pay for long-term rentals and such. When there's a cool peace park. Yeah, I would like to see the place commemorating the massacre by soldiers in 1990. If you guys in North America are not aware of why there's a huge caravan of people migrating from Central America through Mexico to the southern border. Like, hint, those people aren't Mexicans. They're mostly displaced people from Guatemala and El Salvador from the civil wars that our country was fighting. Yeah, even during my time of enlistment, although I was in the Navy, we instigated a civil war in El Salvador. And well, there was some civil war going on in Guatemala. And of course, most people are aware of what happened in Nicaragua to some degree. What you might not be aware of is at the end of the El Salvadorian War, the U.S. government helped broker the peace treaty. And because of all the atrocities that soldiers had committed, largely death squads trained at Fort Benning, Georgia, School of Americas, killing peasants, nuns, priests, because, oh, maybe they said something leftist or they're too in favor of the people over the large corporations or landowners. So because of these atrocities, they were no longer allowed to act as police, but there was no police force. Rather than wait for a police force to be instituted into El Salvador, country where we caused civil war in the fact there was no police, we exported MS-13 and 13th Street Avenue gang members to El Salvador. There, the out-of-work death squads quickly took over those organizations and taught them how to really be ruthless. And hence, they got really big and strong. And now there is police forces where they already got their foot. They really got a power grab, and people are fleeing to gang violence. So when you think about all that nonsense about build a wall, remember this. Our foreign policy caused the problem, and no wall is ever going to stop desperate war refugees. So if you really want to stop the, controlled immigration, consider talking to your Democratic and Republican legislators and let them know what kind of foreign policy you want, and that you don't want to create more problems to your southern neighbors because, well, you think you have enough of them already at home. In the meantime, the damage caused is probably going to take decades to heal. So just remember, your tax dollars caused that problem, and spending more on a wall might make you feel better, but it ain't going to change a thing. Just a little thing, like you wander around here long enough, you start learning inconvenient truths. Or maybe if you were in the military when all this happened, you might have been curious and learned what really happened. I'm not the only one. It's just the way it is. Yeah. Not trying to be ugly, like Wade's pointing out, but it's the way it is. Honduras, yeah. Venezuela's also got some real issues, and that was economical warfare. So if you're drinking dirty water in Pennsylvania, West Pennsylvania, from fracking, well, that was part of the economic plan to drive the price of gas down to hurt Venezuela. Unfortunately, it damaged several other countries. There's a lot of Venezuelans. Most of the Venezuelans, from my being on the ground in South America, most of them seem to be trying to get into Colombia, Ecuador, and Peru. I mean, there are lots of them. I still see them surging through there, even all these years later. So I'm sure there's quite a few headed to the United States too, but it seems like most of them want to go back to other Andean countries, many of which migrated from other Andean countries during the high times when Venezuela was really rocking with all the oil profits. A lot of folks from Andean countries in Peru and such are poor went to Venezuela to seek their fortunes. It's kind of interesting. The more time you rat around down here, the more strange things you learn, whether you want to or not. Thanks, Wade. Anyway, that's Fred's kind of crazy American history class. And, something crazy I'm with him. So you just never know till you know. Then you can't forget. So, but I do encourage anybody to come down here to Latin America and check it out. Peru, for instance, is an extremely safe place. I know you're reading about newspaper and you're seeing the tear gas that the cops are lobbing on the people protesting what the elites throwing their president in prison, and but Hey, at least they ain't stormed the freaking Capitol. So I mean, I don't know how different it is in the United States, but it is what it is. But that said, if you go to Peru, the only place the people will warn you about is be careful in Lima, and there is some truth to that. There are some bad neighborhoods in Lima. I've even spent a month in one on purpose a few years ago. It was bad, but it wasn't any worse than Southside Chicago or North Charleston, South Carolina, where I've spent quite a bit of time. That said, like I said, the locals just want you to be really careful in Lima. They'll even tell you be really careful in Barranco and Miraflores. Miraflores and Barranco, two small cities within the city of Lima, they're really safe. Miraflores is where all the rich people live, and Barranco is like the bohemian place. That's where all the hippies live. And it's really nice, but you got to be careful when you get to the edges of Barranco. You got to be really careful. The edges of Miraflores, man, they're not quite so defined. They might be safer. It's a little common sense will go a long ways. Once you get outside of Lima and you get to the other places, it's extremely safe. I've wandered around at all sorts of hours in several of the cities and never had any issues. It's very safe, and the people you can talk to the people, and they'll tell you what's safe and not safe. 90% of them, you ask them if their town's safe, and they'll tell you, oh, tranquilo. They'll tell you it's very safe, but really careful when you go back to Lima to catch your flight. And there is some truth to that. I had an incident in Lima, Peru, but I was in a really bad neighborhood. I knew what I was getting into. Smoking Joe's. Muchas gracias, Wade. Oh yeah, yeah. I'm planning on going to Smoking Joe's on Sunday on Christmas. So I better figure out. I better ask what the schedule is before I get on the boat taxi to make sure I get back home. Or I might have issues. But Smoking Joe's has some really good barbecue, and the steaks look really good. But I haven't eaten one, so I can't say they're great. But they look good, and the people eating them are smiling, so it must not be bad. So I guess if I go to Smoking Joe's, I get a really early start so I can get back before the last taxi leaves. I'll ask. Last time I recall when I bought my ticket, they told me without me asking that I needed to be back on the last one by 5:20. 5:20 p.m. I think. Seems like I got a hint anyway. I know somebody told me while I was buying my ticket. Good advice, Alan. Anyway, Alan Stern's a really good source. If you join everydayhobo.com, Alan's one of the fine folks you can chat with if you decide you want to come to Lake Atitlan and see Guatemala. I think on my next trip through Guatemala, I'll spend more time in northern Guatemala on my way and stop and see some more ruins. Ooh, swordfish is good too. I might have to see what else is on the menu when I'm there. I know the pork loin was really good from my previous trip, and the sides were pretty excellent. It was really good. Best barbecue I've had outside of the Carolinas, Georgia, and Tennessee. Anyhow, I will say that for sure. I don't think I've had barbecue in Texas or Arkansas, so I'm not sure I really speak to those. Whenever I've been in Oklahoma, I just eat steak. So San Pedro, where Smoking Joe's is located, is across the lake. It feels like it takes forever to get there, but I don't think the boat ride takes more than 30 or 40 minutes. Just like it takes a while because they kind of go along the perimeter of the lake and stop at each dock at each little small enclaves. I'm not sure you can really call them towns. Some are really tiny. And stop, see if anybody wants to go, and they pick people up, and you keep bouncing across the lake. It's not a really bad ride. It gets a little choppy, but real bounces are when another boat crosses your way and the wake hits the boat and it gets up in the air and it kind of lands hard. So in front of the boat, it can be a rough ride. If you got bad back, sit in the back of the boat. Pro tip. I hear you, Wade. Yeah, I bet it's probably good up there in Kansas City, Missouri, too. I did not think to eat that when I was there last time. I'll keep it in mind next trip. Yeah, 30, 40 minutes. It sounds about right. It wasn't. It's not a bad ride, and it's kind of fun riding the boat across the lake too. It's pretty neat. I'm gonna try to like during my remaining time here in Guatemala. I'm trying to get out on the lake and bounce around and see some more of the villages and towns. I'll probably start with the one where all the hippies are. See what's going on over there. Sounds interesting. It looks tiny, so I'm thinking I could do that pretty quick day and then come back across the lake, be lazy for a while, maybe take a day off or do something different on this side of the lake, go see a nearby town by road, and then go somewhere else on the lake. Of course, I'll have to look at the weather and try to plan my days so I don't waste a good weather day when I could have been on the lake, I suppose. So we got about 15 minutes left. So any of you guys got any questions, thoughts? Ecuador, Peru, Guatemala, Mexico? Oh man, the luxury, some of the stuff and mansions built along the lake, or let's just say way over the top. I'm pretty sure they're gringos or rich people from Europe. I don't know. I from the when we stopped at the hippie enclave, San Marcos, some rather rich Europeans got on the boat, and well, they weren't dressed real rich, but anyway, they were neo hippies. They were not poor neo hippies, and they're catching a ride over San Pedro. So that was kind of interesting. But there's on the way to San Marcos from Panachel, there are some way over the top buildings. There's even some, I would call them mini skyscrapers, but by Charleston, South Carolina standards, they're skyscrapers. They're as big as anything in Charleston, which is pretty crazy. It's like I mean, I know right away there's some of those places I don't need to stop because I know I can't afford it, and they're probably not the kind of people I want to hang around with. And I don't mean that in a derogatory fashion either. They probably really don't want some dirtbag like me wandering around there either. I don't think river hippies are on their menu of people they really want to spend time with and talk to. Oh, well, cool. At least there's some rich people from Guatemala City. That's cool. I mean, at least it's local money. That ain't a bad thing. I don't know if I'm be climbing any volcanoes or not, although these aren't nearly as high as the ones in Ecuador. So maybe the oxygen isn't so thin and it might not be so frigid at the top. The last volcano I climbed up to the glacier, and I think the glacier was like stuck up a good 20 feet above the land or the dirt mass. And it was really cold at 15,000 feet, and the air was very thin. I decided I didn't want to go all the way to the refuge. I decided I could go back down at that point. I figured I already saw enough. That was a few years ago. That was before COVID, back in 2019. What a nice park. There's Park and Trailhead. Maybe I will go see that. That sounds pretty cool. Anyway, this trip so far hasn't been bad. I flew into Mexico City. And from Mexico City, I took a very zigzagged trip coming down to Guatemala. I stopped at several archaeological sites. I spent 2 weeks in Mexico checking out a lot of museums, trying to soak up and learn as much as I could about the culture, the history, the pantheon of gods and such. It's very interesting. The anthropology museum in Mexico City takes 2 full days to see everything. I took a lot of pictures because I wasn't sure how much I'd be able to remember. So I got a whole bunch of archives I can go back through, and I took pictures of almost all the write-ups too, so I could study it some more. That stuff's somewhere on my Facebook page and album. If you're inclined to check it out, I threw it up there so anybody can look at it. It isn't the same as being there, but you can get a quick overview and learn a lot of background. Oh yeah, I definitely agree with Alan. don't go up volcanoes without guides. I had one when I went up to the glacier, and my guide wasn't surprised when I didn't want to go any further. He apparently was pretty smart. But I had a really good time. That was in Ecuador. It's the second tallest volcano in the world. They could kind of see the top of it. It was a pretty clear day. There's clouds, but you could see the top of the volcano. CDD. Yeah, walking up volcanoes can be very dangerous and probably anywhere, but here in the tropics, you start walking up them and it could be a sunny day and the sun shines down the glacier and it causes fog and clouds and well, you can get lost. I've been warned by my friends, even in Baños de Agua Santa, Ecuador, where there's not so much in the way of a glacier, but there is one. It kind of comes and goes, and you can get disoriented and lost up there. And yeah, well, you could die of exposure pretty quick. And anytime you're going up somewhere steep, bad things could potentially happen. So I don't recall what the tallest one is. I know, well, somewhere deep in my brain, but I can't remember. Cotopaxi, I think, is the tallest one I've been up on. Well, I've been on a couple of them in Ecuador. I can't remember super well at this moment. I didn't study up on that today. All right, Wade, you're misbehaving now. So back to the story. So I'm coming down from Mexico City. I've spent a couple of weeks. That really broke my budget because lodging was really expensive by my standards in Mexico. My overall lodging in Mexico cost me, I want to say, I'm doing this off the top of my head about looking at a spreadsheet. I'll post spreadsheets later when I do some updates to the website. But I think it cost me an average of $23 a day. That is not what I paid everywhere. But one place I stayed in Mexico City was way steep. I only spent 33 days in Mexico. So that 2 weeks in Mexico City definitely skewed the cost. Veracruz was quite affordable. That's down at sea level. It was interesting. I wanted to go see the ocean where Cortez burned his fleet during the conquest. I thought that was really cool. I went to Templo Mayor to see where some of the conquistadors were given the privilege of being making the ultimate sacrifice to someone else's god, just like they allowed so many other peoples to do to their god. I just thought it was ironic and poetic justice, so I had to go see it. And then I went to museums and learned as much as I could about it. I already read a lot of this stuff going back for years. And after Veracruz, I went to go see, well, I might get out of this order. I went to see some really big pyramids and met some great locals on another little jaunt. Now I went to Puebla to learn more about Cinco de Mayo. And from Puebla, I cut out a stop because it was not going to be affordable at all because I didn't book in advance because of Day of the Dead. So I went on down San Cristobal. In San Cristobal, I stayed a bit longer than I intended before I came on into Guatemala. But I did spend Day of the Dead there, and that was really cool. I walked through the graveyards, and I also went and looked at how some of the indigenous people that still worship the old ways, how they celebrate Day of the Dead. That was really interesting. They don't like pictures, by the way, so there's limited video and photos from that little excursion. So I come in here, crossing the Guatemala border by land was interesting. You could easily go across that border without getting any stamps in your passport. That might cause problems later if you go to the airport and try to fly out, though. So I don't recommend it, but the border is definitely pretty porous. Yeah. And yeah, there are active volcanoes here. I believe there are 30 active volcanoes in Guatemala. I'm not saying they're all erupting now, but they have the potential to do so. They're not dormant. So now that I'm in Guatemala, I plan to probably see Antigua. Maybe. I'm not absolutely certain. It's pretty much a colonial place, and I've seen a lot of colonial architecture. I may spend a little time there, or I may just go straight to Guatemala City maybe try to check out a couple of museums and hop a flight to Quito, Ecuador. And from there, I'll just completely wing it and try to go visit friends in a few different towns and cities on my way to my favorite place to hang out and spend time. Maybe I'll do a jaunt down to Loja, Vicabamba, and some other things that I haven't yet got to see. I'll just play it by ear and see how much money I have. Right now, my resources are kind of tight. It's the way life goes sometimes. Okay, only 8 of them are considered active, and there's 33 volcanoes. Alan is the expert. Apparently, the source I was watching or learning from the other day misled me, which doesn't surprise me at all. So, hey, so it's 8-minute warning. You got a question? I think I've rambled on enough about Mesoamerica for now, unless you got a question about it, like what you want to know. And that Wade feller, he's typing away. So no telling what he's going to come up with. I thank all you guys for coming to check out this live stream. I hope they'll get better. At some point when I can do it, otherwise than on this webcam, I will try to get you higher quality pictures. And when I get down to Ecuador, I think I can schedule it because I'll be in a different time zone. I can schedule it while the sun's up. And even if I am doing this webcam, I can get you some really good visuals of volcanoes there. They're even taller than the ones I see around this lake, and show you some other mountains and what the some of the Indian landscape looks like. Here, by this time slot, it is dark, but I am in central zone, and I'm further away from the equator. Thank you, Alan. Appreciate. I'm not going to touch that one way, but I believe in freedom of speech as long as it's reasonable. Anyway, I do appreciate all you cats coming out here to check this out. Feel free to leave comments even after this live stream is over. Feel free to come and leave comments behind this live stream of what you would like to see in the future, what kind of topics you'd like, what I could improve, what I'm doing wrong. Lay it out there. You give me feedback, it'll help me improve this. I do plan on trying to do this down in Ecuador. I might do it more than one location. I have not hammered out my itinerary. I have to go see my adoptive Ecuadorian family for a few months, or I'm going to get reported missing, and that would be really bad. I also need to go see some good friends in Otavalo, and I got some boater pals that I haven't seen in a couple of years down in Tana that I really need to try to make sure I cross paths with as all possible this trip. And maybe I'd like to go see Mendo while I'm around Otavalo. I really like Otavalo. It's much cooler, maybe very nice, even after Christmas. Well, Merry Christmas to all you folks. And with that, since I started early, I think I'm going to call it a day. But like I said, I'm going to leave the chat comments on, but feel free to come back to this video or any of my other videos, especially the recent ones where I'll be sure to notice it, and leave any suggestions of things you would like covered. I'm not sure what this week's video is going to be, but I will try to give you a chance for Q&A and questions or suggestions about the video after the fact on the live feed. And of course, there's always comments on the video. So peace out for now. Hope to hear more from you. And I hope you don't mind the radical truth sometimes in a few of these videos. It's just my opinion, but I do try to back it up with some factual stuff. And I might be a bit of a free thinker, but at least I'm not wearing one of my Che t-shirts today. Maybe later. More later.